So we'll be back. This is On Point.
This episode of On Point is supported by a grant from the John Templeton Foundation.
Like, really, what do those color name people do at Pantone? Is that their full-time job, to sit around a boardroom and eat donuts and think of cool names? Sounds like a pretty sweet gig, especially in these days before the holiday break when your calendar looks like a game of Tetris and you are losing badly. You'll be hearing more of On Point in just a minute here on WUSF 89.7. So proud to be your spot for local.
Next time on Florida Matters Live and Local, what now qualifies as a professional degree, and how's that affecting your ability to take out federal loans? How are you paying those expensive tuition bills? Give us a call, 813-755-6562, or send us an email, FloridaMatters@WUSF.org.
Florida Matters Live and Local, Monday through Thursday at noon on WUSF 89.7. You can also listen online at WUSF.org or watch us on the WUSF YouTube channel.
Funding for WUSF comes from listeners like you, and also the Baby Boomers Barrister, an estate planning and elder law firm for baby boomers, their parents, and children, helping boomers and their kids control their property now and after they die, and assisting parents with long-term care planning and financing. BabyBoomersBarrister.com. Garrison Keillor returns to the Billheimer Capitol Theater with Erica Rhodes for The Crazy Uncle and His Sensible Niece. Don't miss America's favorite storyteller on February 24th. You can get tickets now at rutheckerdhall.com.
Support for On Point comes from Seed. Seed's DS-01 is a 24-strain, 2-in-1 probiotic and prebiotic, engineered to survive digestion, support healthy regularity, and promote whole body health. Learn more at seed.com/public. And Viking, committed to exploring the world in comfort, offering small ship experiences with a shore excursion included in every port, and programs designed for cultural enrichment. Learn more at Viking.com.
You're back with On Point. I'm Meghna Chakrabarty, and today we are talking about how color has an impact or influences your perception of the world and your mood, and why obviously that's just important because color is everywhere in our lives, but it's also pretty big business. And so we'll talk about that in just a little bit. But I'm joined today by Melanie McClintock. She's a professor of color, materials, and design at the College for Creative Studies. She joins us from Detroit. And Olivia Cuzio is with us. She's the lead technical imaging specialist at the Getty Museum in Los Angeles, and she's with us from Studio City, California. And Olivia, if you don't mind, I still want to learn a little bit more about the example of Van Gogh's irises, because before we talk about how you would actually sort of chemically make a perfect match of that blue in that very famous painting, I suddenly thought during the break, well, actually, what kind of blue would you want to match, right? Is it the blue that we're seeing now in the painting? Or you talked earlier about how colors themselves change over time because the chemical configuration of the pigment changes over time. Would we want to match what it might have been when Van Gogh first painted it?
Yeah, great question. There are a couple different ways to answer that. So the first thing probably gets at the ethics of conservation and minimal intervention, if at all possible, because conservation is a field that recognizes that the scientists who are supporting this kind of work, our tools and techniques and technologies are only going to get better, and we're probably going to be able to understand these materials better in the future. So the interventions that happen now are all done extremely sparingly and in conversation with curators, with conservators, with scientists who are all at the table talking about how best to take care of an object. With Van Gogh's irises, I should say, it's in really, really good condition. Aside from this one thing that we have found with the fading of the petals, it's in extremely good structural condition. The paint's great. It's not going anywhere. So what one would do in this case, we want that painting to look really visually clean up on the wall. It doesn't need any kind of in-painting, any kind of restoration, but at this point, a conservator would go in really carefully and use a pigment that's really similar to the blue pigments that we know are present in the painting based on analyses that me and my team have done that have identified on a chemical and molecular level the colorants that are present, and therefore we know the exact materials, the exact pigments that are there. So for example, those blue petals contain a pigment called cobalt blue. They contain a little bit of Prussian blue and also a little bit of ultramarine blue. So Van Gogh was this master of using different kinds of blue that have different ways that they interact with light that give them slightly different tonalities and really evoke different kinds of shadows and different ways that light would have been hitting those petals in the garden when he was looking at these flowers. So it's really imperative that conservators then take the analyses, the mapping of these chemical elements that we've provided them, and understand where Van Gogh distributed each of these different colorants so that they can go back in with the same or very, very similar, chemically similar paints that we have now that that they can match the chemistry in down to a specific brushstroke or part of a brushstroke so that it wouldn't stand out in a gallery under the specific lighting that we've got in our galleries at the museum.
Okay. Professor McClintock, I promise to get back to you here, but there's just a couple more interesting questions that this hypothetical, right, around irises brings up. Because, Olivia, as you were just describing, it suddenly occurred to me, well, we're not just talking blue that came out of the tube, right, when Van Gogh was first painting, because I presume, if not him, then every other painter was also just mixing on their palettes, right?
Absolutely.
And so that's one of the things that makes, as you said, not even from brushstroke to brushstroke, but like even within the same brushstroke, you can have this spectrum of totally unique colors that probably never existed anywhere else because it's the distribution of the paint on the brush and also Van Gogh's own original desire of like mixing this with that and that gets the color that I want.
Yeah, exactly. And, Van Gogh, he was such a gestural painter, and we call his technique wet in wet. So he was doing this mixing of paints right on the palette and swirling them together. And it's really an amazing, fascinating, beautiful world to look at this painting under a microscope and see up close and personal down to the pigment particles of how these different colorants are all swirled together in the same like square millimeter of a paint stroke.
That's so interesting. So it makes the idea of conservation or like even the microscopic fill-ins becomes infinitely more complex the way
Absolutely.
you're. And my final question about irises is that it's not just the pigment in the paint; it's although pigment is suspended in. These things, I presume, also have an influence on the color that we see. And then that must also be true today. So when we're, again, hypothesizing about creating an exact molecular match, would we have to use the same sort of suspension compounds?
Yeah, so what would happen is a conservator would lay down what's called an isolation layer of varnish, so a clear coat of varnish on top of the original paint to isolate any kind of restoration paint that they would be using to make fills or small corrections. And then, based on, again, the analyses that us supporting scientists do, we understand the chemistry of the materials of the paint binder is what you're getting at. So the media that the pigments are suspended in, doing our best to match the media. Yep.
Okay, that's so interesting. Professor McClintock, I don't know if you have anything to add to that before I get to more specific questions about what you teach your students.
Nothing specific, no.
Okay, good. Just wanted to check. So, but the theme that is emerging to me from the example of Van Gogh is how, I mean, obviously this is also true in design, how incredibly personal and perhaps even then sometimes unconscious decision making is in terms of how we use color. I mean, we've been talking about Pantone, which is like gives you a color number for standardization, but design is all about not creating things that are totally standard, right? And evoking some kind of feeling, emotion, or response to it. So how do you teach your students about how to balance those things? Because it's not just about what they think looks good. They're designing for someone or for some purpose.
Right. That's definitely where we have the conversation about bias and perception. First, we have to understand that we're really looking at the materiality of color for blending pigments that find more sophisticated or off tones, that exist that are beyond, excuse me, you know, are sort of understood colors. We're pushing into nuance. We're looking for something that may be more complex or a hybrid color that has more of a profound impact on our psyche because this challenges our brain to not categorize. So we're pushing, it helps us to push beyond those biases. Excuse me, our preferences that we have. We know primary colors simple or trigger bold reactions, happiness, danger, but with a more complex hue we know that we can trigger more complex emotions, so that we really push students to look at larger ideas around nostalgia or um, calmness or futuristic tension or so, some examples would be, looking at, maybe neutrals, we call them liminal neutrals, they sit between a color and a neutral. So, many know about grayish, so this idea of gray and beige, and this can feel very organic, like stone, it's warm, but it can also feel very architectural, like concrete, and it's cool. It just depends on its context. So we really push students to think about the emotional connection they want to make, whether it's to a product, it's to an environment, or excuse me, even an experience. It's to really define what those colors look like.
Interesting. Okay, so I mean, actually, since we're talking about students who are going to go into the world uh, um, to to become professional designers, Olivia, let me turn back to you because I presume we've been talking about beautiful things because it's nice
Yeah.
to talk about beautiful things, but really, the business of color is so much bigger than that. And I think, I mean, I'm sitting here in front of a computer screen, and yes, I do have my phone next to me, and I'm thinking that a lot of really sort of investment heavy color science right now is going into what we see on screens. Does that fair, Olivia?
Absolutely. I mean, we experience so much of our world through screens now. And many of my colleagues who I studied with at the program at RIT, they have gone on to work in tech, to work in big tech, up in the Bay Area. And they're the folks who are engineering the actual hardware of your display screens, so your TVs, your monitors, your cell phones. They're engineering the cameras in your cell phone to make it take really good pictures on the hardware side, but they're also folks who are involved algorithmically, programmatically on the software side, on the image processing side, on the how images are produced on your displays side to make images appear in a way that is nice to look at, pleasing to look at. So these folks have studied using a kind of science called psychophysics, the kinds of images and the kinds of image manipulations, for example, boosting saturation or really making reds pop or greens pop. People like to see
And overly vibrant default settings on phone cameras.
Right.
But it has come to the point, gosh, and maybe just because like I'm a crotchety old middle-aged woman, but I'm like, reality, this is not the scene I actually saw when I was taking the picture, on my phone. It's actually crossed into a place where everything, is sort of the modern version of Technicolor. It's too bright. I don't,
Right.
you can feel free to push back against that.
No, no, I fully agree. And I think again, it's like we've gone from that kind of pigment-based understanding of color to this like pixel-based. So it's
Uh,
like we have um, backlighting, and we're seeing these colors that are really difficult to physically reproduce, and so these expectations that we're having of color are very unrealistic, this kind of cyber lime or electric magenta or the high vis neons, they vibrate on the screen, but translating those into real life is if not impossible, very difficult. Recently had a student doing a thesis on this topic of how our addiction to AI has changed our perception of how our expectations on color.
Oh, interesting.
And so, it's definitely having an effect. We're expecting, more iridescence and holographic, glowing.
Right. Right. And it's all because of business, right? Not because it's actually making our lives richer through the use of color. But I'm Meghna Chakrabarty. This is On Point. So in the last few minutes that we have, I want to turn back to the more positive ways in which color enriches. I'm using that word a lot, but it's the only one I can really think of in terms of how color enhances not just our perception of the world, but how we feel about our place in it. And the best example we received came from On Point listener Glenn Freeman, who lives in Mount Vernon, Iowa. And he told us that his most striking experience with color occurred while taking a final trip with his wife. Because after she passed away, he took her ashes to a favorite Florida beach and placed them right at the tide line in the late afternoon. And Glenn told us that it was there where he tried to say goodbye.
I was asking her to forgive me for things that I didn't do well when she was sick. And right at that moment, I should say that we are both intense birders. Right at that moment, a flock of sanderlings flew right in front of me with their very white chests. And the sun was behind me, and it hit, and they're flying in a perfect geometric pattern. And the sun behind me hit those white chests. And this was only for seconds, but it flashed a color I've never seen before, and I can't find. It was a brilliant, the best I can say is a green gold, but I cannot find the color. Nothing quite like it at all. And so it was only for seconds. But it was the most profound color and experience of color I have ever seen.
That's Glenn Freeman, who listens to On Point in Mount Vernon, Iowa. Olivia, I'm just curious what that made you feel or think.
That was extremely powerful. I got chills. What a powerful image to share, and just the way that Glenn described it, I can picture the moment and the beauty of that moment. And what I will say is, color is an experience that happens to us in our brain, and we detect that we detect color with our eyes, and really, your retina is the first part of your brain. The retinal cells are really an extension of your brain. So this is powerful cognitive memory-tied, emotion-tied experience that Glenn was experiencing on that beach that day, and it's very real.
Yeah. Professor McClintock, I'll give you the final word today.
Oh, very heavy after that. Speaking of an emotional experience, I had to mute myself. Beautiful. I mean, when we're talking about color and emotion, it really is something that we understand from our lived experience. And so everyone has an opinion, everyone has a feeling about color.
Support for On Point comes from Eton, the preparedness company. From power and light to emergency radios, Eton is committed to helping customers stay connected and protected when the unexpected happens. More at etoncorp.com. And the Marotra Institute at Boston University, hosting the Is Business Broken podcast, featuring conversations with academics, industry leaders, and politicians. More at ibms.bu.edu.
Studies showed that giving someone a gift activates the same part of the brain as looking at a beautiful painting or drinking water when you're thirsty.
Giving to others is a massive source of joy and well-being. It's a pleasure in and of itself.
Why generosity is essential to human connection. That's on the next On Point.
You can hear that tomorrow with On Point right here on WUSF 89.7 Tampa. Hello, I'm Lisa Peaks, and it's that time of year when college acceptance notifications are coming in. And first, you or a young person in your life might be wondering what's involved in getting a degree. And second, how the heck you're going to pay for it. Do you have some wisdom to share about that, or some questions? So many questions. Keep listening because that's one of the topics with Florida Matters Live and Local, up next after the news.
Hi, this is Karen with WUSF, sending you peace, love, and joy this season. Happy holidays!
WUSF depends on contributions from people like you. And Suncoast Credit Union, whose local professionals are ready to support businesses with tailored products and services, from commercial real estate and investment loans to equipment financing and treasury management. Learn more at suncoast.com/nextlevel.
New rules are putting limits on the student loans that grad students can get, but it only applies in certain career fields. Opponents say this restriction will only hurt areas already struggling to find qualified workers. Supporters say it'll keep students out of unnecessary debt. I'm Sky LeBron, and if you're a grad student, how could this impact you? Call 813-755-6562 and tell us about it. Also, one of Tampa's most popular bus routes was free this year. How did that turn out after a year of data to draw on? Could we see more of this in the area going into 2026? We'll talk about it. And later, RuPaul's Drag Race is gearing up for season 18. Have you seen the show? It's pretty awesome. We're speaking to a local drag queen who will be a contestant this season. You're not going to want to miss this conversation. All of this and more, plus your calls on Florida Matters Live and Local. First, the news.
Live from NPR News, I'm Janine Herbst. President Trump has ordered a ban on all sanctioned oil tankers going to and from Venezuela. And the threat of a partial blockade marks an escalation in the Trump administration's pressure campaign against Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. NPR's Greg Myrie has more.
Now, a monitoring group, Tanker Trackers, said recently that around 30 of the 80 oil tankers in or near the waters of Venezuela were on this U.S. sanctions list. So those 30 could potentially be targets, while the others presumably would not be. And we saw an example of this just last week when the U.S. Coast Guard seized a fully loaded tanker that was on the list.
NPR's Greg Myrie reporting. The Trump administration says it will start taking steps to effectively end gender-affirming care for youth. Secretary of Health Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Dr. Mehmet Oz, the head of the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid, outlined the Trump administration's proposed plans today to deny reimbursement funds for doctors and hospitals that provide the care for transgender young people under the age of 18. Meanwhile, the Department of Health and Human Services abruptly terminated 7 grants made to the American Academy of Pediatrics. NPR's Maria Godoy reports the group has been a frequent and vocal critic of Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s changes to federal vaccine policy.
The canceled grants involved initiatives in multiple areas of child health, including reducing sudden infant death, early identification of autism, and prevention of fetal alcohol spectrum disorders. In a statement to NPR, Mark Del Monte, the CEO of AAP, said, quote, "The sudden withdrawal of these funds will directly impact and potentially harm infants, children, youth, and their families in communities across the United States." He said the American Academy of Pediatrics is exploring all available options, including legal recourse to address the grant terminations. HHS did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Maria Godoy, NPR News.
The Labor Department says inflation in the U.S. cooled a bit last month. NPR's Scott Horsley has more.
Consumer prices in November were up 2.7% from a year ago. That's a smaller annual increase than in September, when inflation was clocked at 3%. The inflation reading for October was incomplete because furloughed federal workers were not able to do their usual price checks during the 6-week government shutdown. Analysts warn that also may have distorted the November reading. While the cost of some food items like eggs has come down in the last year, overall prices continue to climb. Electricity and natural gas prices are up sharply from a year ago, adding to winter heating bills. Persistent inflation has been a drag on President Trump's approval rating. Scott Horsley, NPR News, Washington.
And Wall Street is trading higher at this hour. You're listening to NPR News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive Insurance with Snapshot, a personalized program that bases rates on safe driving habits, at Progressive.com. Not available in California or from all agents. This is NPR.
You're listening to WUSF 89.7. I'm Craig Kopp. Your biggest fear around the holidays might be holiday decorations, or if you made enough sweets for your loved ones to enjoy. But WUSF's Emma Brisk says a lot of families are worried about just putting food on the table.
Nonprofits like Metropolitan Ministries are working hard to help spread holiday magic to families in need. Christine Long is their Chief Programs Officer. She tells Florida Matters Live and Local their usual demand was made worse this year with the temporary hold of SNAP funding during November's government shutdown.
It really caused us to dig really deep into our food supplies. At the time, I started asking people, bring us food, bring us food. It was the big request. Getting product is even a challenge and with a quick turnaround time.
Metropolitan Ministries hosts holiday tents where people can shop for their own food to prepare at home. The organization offers each child a couple of toys and pajamas so they have something under the tree. Emma Brisk, WUSF 89.7 News.
You can find the holiday tent schedule at WUSF.org. If you play board games, you know just how rich and tactile an experience it can be in a world overrun now by digital screens. A Tampa area teacher is asking for your help. She has a plan to use board games to give her students a Christmas present and bring them together with their parents over these games. Temple Terrace Elementary 5th grade teacher Naomi Frierson wants to gift brand new board games to her 68 students for Christmas. This is her second year doing this. She says the games may be the only gifts some of her lower income students will get.
We put all the gifts under the tree and we all sat together as a family and distributed the gifts and let everybody open them so that they had that almost kind of Christmas morning experience.
Frierson says it's also an opportunity for her students to involve their hands and brains without a screen. If you'd like to donate, you can find out how at WUSF.org. I'm Craig Kopp, WUSF 89.7 News.
The Dunedin Fine Arts Center sets its own splendid table in its new food art studio and kitchen. Learn artful cooking techniques from around the world while breaking bread with old friends or new. Dig into class offerings at dfac.org.
Wake Up Call from WUSF delivers the latest local news to you first thing Monday through Friday. Our newsletter keeps you connected to community, news, culture, national NPR headlines, and more. Sign up for your Wake Up Call at WUSF.org.
You're listening to Florida Matters, live and local, broadcasting from the doctors Lorraine Rubis and Neil Frankel studio at WUSF in Tampa. I'm Sky LeBron, in for Matthew Petty. I miss him every single day. In 2025, the Hillsborough Area Transit Authority, or HART, made its Bus Route 1 free. This is one of, if not the most frequently used bus routes in the entire county. It travels from the Marion Transit Center in downtown Tampa, north on Florida Avenue, then east on Fletcher Avenue to the University Area Transit Center near USF. Then it loops back downtown. I did some reporting on this back in April, and the numbers showed that with Route 1 being free, more people were riding it, like a lot more. Overall, it cost the city council about $1.6 million to make this route free for the full year, and it was treated as kind of like a pilot program Did you ride Route 1 sometime this year? What do you think about free bus transit in the Tampa Bay area? Should it continue to be a free ride, or do you have any concerns with that? Give us a call, 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. Or send us an email, FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Heather Sobush is Heart's Director of Planning and Scheduling. She's with us now on Florida Matters Live and Local. Heather, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
So I wanted to start by asking, how much work went into making Bus Route 1 free for the entire year?
So there was, first of all, a lot of analysis of which corridor would make the most sense to be fare free. And as you mentioned, it serves two of the biggest economic drivers in our county between USF and downtown. So we did a lot of analysis of the density, the demographics along the corridor, and why we thought it would be a success. And then actually implementing the program really was more of a marketing effort. And then we did things like, put signage on the fare boxes to make sure that people understood they didn't need to pay. But yeah, it was a relatively easy process.
And how successful was it? Now you have kind of a year of data to draw on. It was the most popular route prior to this becoming free. What happened over 2025?
So, yes, it was the highest ridership route before the pilot started, and then it has gained ridership such that it was previously about 3,000 riders a day, and now it's about 5,000 riders a day. So that has been very successful. It's also met a number of other goals, such as improving the on-time performance because of faster boarding times. And then another part of the pilot was improved frequency so that riders know they can just go out to a bus stop and a bus will be coming within 15 minutes.
And when you're talking about efficiency of the bus, I know that's a big deal for a lot of bus riders.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I need this here every 20 to 30 minutes, every 15 minutes if I can get it. You're saying with it being free, that just shortened the amount of time?
Correct, because we didn't have to have the fare payment process of people boarding.
What's the rationale? Are there benefits to the region that make a free bus route worth it?
I mean, the rationale was, and a huge part was to get new people to try transit. And we have had success in that aspect of the pilot, in that about 20% of our riders that we surveyed, we did quarterly surveys, said that it was their first time riding the bus. And so that was, a really important part of the program.
And what other data points were you really trying to draw on? What other things were you trying to glean from this year?
The on-time performance, as I mentioned, trying to make the route as efficient and fast as possible for riders. We also, another data point we looked at, and this will come up with the new year, is that many of the riders ride other parts of the network. And so they're already paying fares. So that aspect will go away in the new year, but we still are going to have the improved frequencies.
I know Bus Route 1 is also really close to, or it's a good stopping point for other bus routes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a good connection point. That's the word that I wanted to use there.
Yes, it connects to 70% of the rest of the Heart network, and it also connects to the streetcar system so people can get from the USF area to Ybor with an easy, and that's fare free as well, with an easy transfer.
Can you talk a little bit about what the economic impact of something like this is when people have more access to get to more places and they don't have to spend a little bit of money just to get to those places?
Yeah, I mean, well, I think I mentioned earlier that it is a very diverse corridor in terms of demographics. And so we have, the new riders who are taking it to maybe go to recreational destinations, to go to dining and dining and retail along the corridor. But we also have a lot of service workers that use our service. So improving a route like this is really beneficial to a wide range of demographics.
I know this might be a little bit hard to get data for, but is there any way to see how it affects the businesses surrounding these routes?
We've had a lot of support from businesses, especially, like I said, retail, dining, particularly newer riders trying out the service and using it to, go have these recreational activities. And then, of course, as I mentioned, also the service workers being able to have easy, affordable access to transportation.
How much does Heart lose out in this when it comes to money in fares? I know it costs about $1.6 million over the course of the year to get this program going. But when it came to losing out on all the money that you would gain over the course of the year, I mean, how much is that?
It was about a little more than $800,000 in fare revenue loss, but the gain in ridership really speaks to the benefits in general of the route.
We're speaking with Heather Sobush. She's Heart's Director of Planning and Scheduling about Bus Route 1 being free all of 2025. What about you? Do you want more bus routes to be free? What do you think about those options? Let us know, 813-755-6562. You can also email us, FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Heather, I think the big question that a lot of people have on their mind is this going to continue into 2026?
So in 2026, the city recognized how important this investment was in transit and is contributing funding. Between both us and the city, we felt that the biggest bang for the buck was the improved frequency. So we're going to maintain the 15-minute frequency on weekdays and also add frequency in the evenings and on weekends, which will be, very, very huge for all of our ridership base.
So some people so first of all, that ends then, the Bus Route 1 being free ends what date exactly?
January 4th.
Okay. So after that, what does the fare go up to?
Well, it's $2 for a one-way ride, but we also have, through our Flamingo fare system and our tap to pay, the fares are capped at $4 a day, or if you're a regular daily rider, it's capped at $65 per month. So that's greatly improved equity for our riders that are using the service regularly.
There were people that were opposed to this when it first got introduced. Some people were saying that there'd be issues with homeless people staying on the buses throughout the day, or even that some buses would get overcrowded because it's free and everybody could ride it really easily. Did you come across, in any of your data analysis over the course of the year, did you come across any of those issues or just any issues in general with the route being free?
We have had some overcrowding, and we have had some people respond in surveys that, the overcrowding was a little bit of an issue. But that said, and we did have some riders transfer from other routes onto this route because it was free. But that said, we are a public transportation provider. We provide service to all of our residents, and, it's open to all of our customers.
Do you see Hart potentially expanding this to other bus routes going forward? In other words, I know it's ending in 2026, but on the horizon, do you see something like this becoming a possibility in a wider part of the network?
I think our focus is going to be on getting funding for improving frequency across the system as opposed to the free fares. And
that's because you just find that to be the most bang for your buck for constituents.
Yes, correct.
Okay. How many people were you able to talk to over the course of the year, to gauge how they were feeling about this? Did you get any rough number?
I do not have the numbers on me, but we did conduct surveys quarterly, and we did get a good response from our Route 1 riders, and we also surveyed our bus operators to see how they felt about the service.
Ooh, what were the bus operators saying?
They like the speeding up, on-time performance improved. So they like that there wasn't all the issues at the fare box, people having to pay, or issues with people and maybe not having exact change. But then they also noted that there was some overcrowding.
I guess how much of an issue is that people coming on the bus, not really having the money, having to work with change and things like that? Is that a big thing for other routes?
It's just something we experience, but our operators are trained to allow people to ride and board, and we do have mechanisms in place to allow people to ride, even if they aren't quite there.
What are some of Hart's most popular routes apart from Bus Route 1?
Well, it depends on the market. So we recently looked at WUSF, for example, and we found that a lot of our student riders who get to ride the bus for free with their WUSF Flamingo fare card, which they can pick up at the transportation office. So a lot of them are riding Route 275. We have a good number of routes that travel between the University Area Transit Center and downtown, all of which are popular. The Route 400 on Nebraska Avenue, and then another route that we'd like to expand frequency, if funding allows, is the route along Hillsborough Avenue. So the Route 34, and that's a high ridership route as well.
Do you have a favorite route? Your personal favorite? As somebody that looks at these routes, is scheduling these routes every single day, do you have a personal favorite? Maybe one that you like to ride, or one that...
Well, my commute involves Hillsborough Avenue, so I pay a lot of attention to Route 34.
Oh, okay, okay.
And it's a high ridership route. There's a lot of pedestrian activity along that corridor, and all of our bus riders are also pedestrians as well. So something we look at in planning.
I guess with the little bit of time that we have left, for people that have this stigma about riding public transit, how do you sell that to people that, hey, this is a good option, this is a viable option?
Well, I think Route 1 really did that successfully of allowing people to try transit. We have champions out there with the Downtown Partnership, with the City of Tampa, and they did ride-alongs, and they, did a pub crawl or a brewery crawl, really just taking away that barrier of the first time. And, and then with the fares coming back, we now have contactless payment. You can, just like you can tap your card at the grocery store, you can tap your card to pay fares on the bus, and you still get, the fare capping. So we have made it a lot easier for people to try transit and hopefully continue to use it.
We've been talking with Heather Soba. She's HART's Director of Planning and Scheduling. Heather, thank you so much for the time.
Thank you.
Thank
you for having me.
Of course. Still to come, the holidays and gifts are great, but not everyone knows what to look out for when shopping for kids. We've got a few tips from an expert to keep the kiddies and yourself safe during the holidays. Send your questions to FloridaMatters at WUSF.org. The phone lines are open, 813-755-6562. Stick with us on Florida Matters, live and local.
The Florida Roundup brings you up to speed on all things Florida, Fridays at noon, from politics to the environment, the economy, and more. And you can call in, too. The Florida Roundup is supported by the Everglades Foundation.
It may not snow in Florida, but winter is still a season of giving back. When you donate your car, truck, or boat to WUSF, you support local journalism that keeps our community informed. Pickup is easy, and your gift may qualify for a tax deduction. Visit WUSF.org or call 866-WUSF-CAR.
I'm Scott Tong from Public Radio's midday news magazine, Here and Now. We bring you all the news that happens between the morning headlines and the afternoon wrap-up, plus conversations with authors and artists, stories that affect you, maybe a story about you. So join us for NPR's midday news magazine, Here and Now.
Join us this afternoon from 1 to 3 on WUSF 89.7.
Welcome back to Florida Matters, live and local. I'm Sky LeBron. The most wonderful time of the year. The holiday season is full of family fun time, but sometimes fun can lead to mishaps. Chestnuts are a-roastin', fires are a-cracklin', candles are a-burnin'. Your cat can knock down a decoration into the fireplace. There's a lot of additional risks that families are facing this holiday season. In fact, the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission reports that in 2020 alone, 9 kids died because of small toy parts during the holidays, and over 100,000 kids went to the ER. The commission also says 160 decorating-related injuries happen each day during the holidays. Most of them involve someone falling. To talk to us more about how we can be more cautious during this jolly time of year is Petra Stanton. She's the Injury Prevention Manager at All Children's Hospital Safe Kids Coalition here in Tampa. Thanks, Petra, for joining us.
Hi, great to be here.
Of course. Thank you for being here with us. I guess the first question is, do you see an increase in the number of injuries this time of year? Is that just something that you're kind of used to?
So I feel like there's always a potential for that, and also an increase in emergency room visits, simply because children get out of school and then they get new toys, and there are a couple of things to look out for that parents may not be familiar with before they give the toys. So yes, there is a high potential of seeing higher injuries and higher emergency room visits at our hospital anytime around the holidays.
Yeah, and I want to get into that a little bit. First, I want to ask, what are some of the common ones you see show up at, urgent clinics or worse, the ER?
So right now we have a trending topic of e-bikes, but bicycle and pedestrian injuries are always fairly high. It starts when it starts getting darker sooner. So we want to make sure from the preventative perspective that the children have something reflective. They wear light clothing, even when walking simply to their bus stop, for example, right? And as the days are shorter at the end of the day, it gets darker sooner. So let's say they're riding a bike from a friend's house, make sure they have some reflectors, the bike is properly lit, and so on. And also, when it comes to prevention, I have to talk about always wear a helmet. It needs to be properly fitted, and the proper fit is like they shouldn't be more than the child's fingers over their eyebrows. It should make a little V right under their ears and no more than 2 fingers under the chin strap. So those are some of the injuries that we see in regards to bicyclists and pedestrians. But we also see families traveling and visiting, and there are center hazards that can be posed to children in particular with visiting a relative who might be older and not used to storing their medication up and away from the child. Same with firearms. Also, while traveling, make sure you have your car seat checked, because, for example, if we are traveling from Florida to a colder climate, the roads may get slippery and so on. So we want to make sure that everybody's properly buckled up and ready before anything happens.
Truly a wide variety of issues that can occur. I guess for you, as somebody that works in this every single day, do you have to monitor the new trendy toys that kids are buying or the new devices that kids are using? Is that just, do you look at it a different way than maybe most other people will look at it? Like, oh, a toy, a bike. You're looking at it as a potential hazard.
Absolutely. So in my world, I feel like my role here at Johns Hopkins All Children's is to make sure that children do not end up in our emergency room. So I naturally, anytime I go to a retailer, I scan for potential hazards that I can see. But I also understand that families want to have their children to have fun and live normal, rich lives, right? So there is a fine balance. So if X happens, what do we do that Y doesn't happen, right? So if I buy, let's say, an e-bike, I want to make sure that I have the helmet that is rated to that speed. And would I recommend this for everything? Absolutely. So when you are thinking, for example, for little kids, I'm just giving an example of what I mean by that. A little child that sees pink and blue and red pills on a table may mistake this for candy. So I look and I see that, right? Because when you look at even some stuff over the counter that is in like a gummy bear vitamin and a gummy bear candy, that can be very confusing to children. So I always look at it like, let's have fun, let's have that candy, but let's make sure that medication is put away. So yeah.
Petra Stanton is the injury prevention manager at All Children's Hospital Safe Kids Coalition here in Tampa. What things do you have in your house that might be a hazard? You want to ask our expert? Now's the time. Give us a call, 813-755-6562. You can also send us an email, FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Christmas morning and just the holiday season, it's filled with a lot of joy. There's people doing a bunch of different things around. It could be a little chaotic. How many times do you have conversation with parents or just relatives that are like, there was just so much going on that I lost sight of my kid for a second, or I wasn't thinking about this particular thing? Is that just a conversation that you have frequently?
So absolutely. We see things happening in circumstances right like this around the holidays when everybody thinks everybody is watching and nobody is really watching. So, for example, in Florida, this is really impactful for families who have a residential pool. So we look out for those exits towards the pool. So to make sure that the child cannot reach a high up lock, or there are door alarms on the door. There is a pool fencing around that fence, because that is a very common injury that comes to our hospital when a child falls into the pool and they suffer an anoxic injury from being in the pool. And the most common way it happens is not that the families intentionally neglect looking out for that child. They just are busy and they are checking on whatever is baking in the oven, and so is watching the football game or whatever it might be. There is just a commotion. So we advise families to always assign somebody to be the designated water watcher. So however you want to assign them, maybe make a tag and tell them, hey, can you please watch the kids and the exit towards the street or towards the pool for the next 20 minutes. If you are leaving this job, make sure that you give that job to somebody else, just simply so that somebody doesn't sneak out. And I've had this happen in my neighborhood, that I see a toddler walking down the road while I'm walking my dog. So it's one of those things that never stops, and be on a lookout for children because they don't see the same hazards as we do, right? So can we trust 2 to 3 year olds to have the same judgment as adults or older children have? Probably not.
Probably
right?
not. No,
So-
yeah, that doesn't sound like a good idea.
I
Hey,
know.
we've been speaking to Petra Stanton. She's the Injury Prevention Manager at All Children's Hospital Safe Kids Coalition in Tampa. Just gave us a bunch of great knowledge there. We should note that All Children's Hospital is a financial supporter of WUSF. Petra, thank you so much for the time.
Thank you.
Coming up, new rules are limiting how much money in loans certain professions can borrow for graduate school. How will these impact specific career fields? Find out more next. You're listening to Florida Matters, live and local.
Support for WUSF comes from listeners like you and from Caldwell Trust Company, an organization which has been navigating clients toward their financial goals since 1993, building wealth and preserving legacy, the way it's meant to be. Learn more at ctrust.com.
Save the date for WUSF's Longest Table this spring along the water in downtown St. Petersburg. If you'd like to be a sponsor of this signature fine dining and fundraising event on Wednesday, April 8th, visit WUSFLongestTable.org.
On the next Fresh Air, Lucy Liu joins us to talk about Rosemead, in which Liu stars as a terminally ill woman grappling with her teenage son's escalating mental health crisis and the impossible choices she faces to protect him. It's based on a true story. She'll talk about the film and her decades-long career. Join us.
Great conversation on Fresh Air tonight at 7 on WUSF.
Welcome back to Florida Matters, live and local. I'm Sky LeBron. There are new guidelines for how much money future students can borrow for graduate school. It depends on whether your program is now defined by the government as professional. Graduate programs in nursing, therapy, social work, and a few others are now deemed not professional based on new rules under President Trump's Big Beautiful Bill. People who work and teach in these fields are also saying the non-professional designation could limit how many students apply for jobs in these areas, deepening the shortages some are already experiencing. The new rules also appear to be aimed at women-dominated industries. If you're applying to grad school, does this impact your decision? Does it make you rethink your career path at all? We want to hear about it. If so, 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. You can also send us an email if you don't feel like talking to us on the air, FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. WUSF's Gabriella Paul has been covering this story and speaking to people about these new professional degree labels, and she's here with us now on Florida Matters Live and Local. Gabriella, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, lay out what's happening. Under these new rules, certain graduate degrees now have a new limit on student loans to pay for education in these fields. Before, was it an unlimited amount that people could pull out?
Exactly. It was unlimited. This unlimited loan limit you'll recognize as a grad plus loan. That is sunsetting next year. So that's exactly the definition of that. Now, I can explain what's happening, but you'll have to brace yourself. So
here we go.
Congress passed new loan limits. That's the big, beautiful bill you mentioned, We weren't sure how it was going to work, the nuts and bolts of this, until the Department of Ed drew up some regulations recently, and it tied how much you can borrow to the type of degree that you're pursuing. So that's where these definitions of professional and non-professional come in. Now, to clear the record on that, these definitions are not new. They're from the Higher Education Act of 1965, but they became a whole lot more important when the Department of Ed tied it to how much you can potentially borrow as a grad student.
So have we noticed any common denominators between the groups that are now deemed non-professional and then the other groups that are still deemed professional?
Well, as you mentioned, definitely female-dominated industries. That's been pointed out. They're all mandatory reporter careers that use these degrees as well. I mean, that's really what fanned the flames on TikTok. This went viral. A lot of people sharing things that are true and not true about these new rules, but those are just some of the similarities. I will say that, most of the professional degrees are those doctoral degrees, medicine, optometry, pharmacy, dentistry, but there's also some medical-based degrees in the non-professional category, like nursing, as you mentioned, that have been getting the most controversy.
So if I'm a student and I already have graduate loans and I'm already and I hear about this, should I be worried right now?
Well, that's a good question. You should not be worried if you're already a grad student. So a really big clarification here is that if you already are borrowing at that unlimited loan amount, you will be grandfathered into these new rules. I think it's within 3 years of finishing your first. So you will be okay. Now, these new loan limits, which will probably come into effect by summer of next year, will really be impacting folks that are applying in the cycle for grad school, maybe starting in the spring and starting their program in the fall.
We're talking with WUSF's Gabriella Paul about the new rules on student loan limitations for certain degree tracks. If you've been impacted by this or you know someone who might be, we want to hear from you. 813-755-6562, 813-755-6562. You can also email us, FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Now, some professionals who already work or teach in these fields are saying long-term, this may cause a greater shortage in this career. But supporters of the changes say otherwise. Gabriella, you spoke with Preston Cooper. He's a senior fellow working on higher education policy at the conservative American Enterprise Institute. Here's why he thinks these limits are a good idea.
These new loan limits are really meant to curtail debt for the highest cost, most expensive programs out there that, quite frankly, should be charging less than they are right now and have only been able to charge that much because Congress had made unlimited student loans available. So I believe that this is going to be a positive change, which is going to reduce student debt and encourage more cost discipline among colleges.
Gabriella, based on talking to Preston Cooper and your reporting and your research that you're doing, do you think that he has a point there? Could this help reduce student debt overall?
I think he does. He specifically studies student loan reform, and his bottom line is that there's been a little bit of a chicken or the egg, phenomenon here when those Grad Plus loans were enacted, which was back in early 2000s. And what you can see looking at a chart is that as loan limits increased, really were unlimited, at the same rate, a lot of these professional degree tuition rates, skyrocketed. So we have seen some examples of universities already rolling back tuition or offering their own loans, which I'm sure we can talk about. But there's been some correction already in the market. Now, it's not a one-size-fits-all thing, but...
So if I'm kind of getting this correctly, it's the way it historically looked is as these loan providers saw that, we can give unlimited amounts, the universities then said, hey, well, then we could charge more because they're able to get more money.
Yeah, and there's a reason for that, too. Students are going to prioritize borrowing from the federal government typically because you're having those lower interest rates and a little bit more flexibility with paying them back off, things like public, service loan forgiveness, some other things that you just can't get in the private lending market. So, it's not to say you still can't personally finance your way through a $300,000 degree program, but
many people can.
It doesn't mean, as many people will be able to. The other really important thing that Preston brought up is that he wanted to right-size this issue. I think it was around 98% of degree seekers are not going over that $200,000 limit, which will now be the cap for grad students. So it's not impacting, as many people as you might think if you were doom scrolling on TikTok when this went viral.
Which everybody does about at least one subject.
Sure.
The number to call one more time, 813-755-6562. If you are thinking about maybe changing your career path because of these new rules that are putting a cap on how much you can take out. Let's talk to people directly affected by this now. Olivia Vignali is a biology student at USF and president of the Pre-Vet Society. Olivia, thank you for joining us on Florida Matters Live and Local.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here, seriously. What are you going to school for? Even though I kind of said it just now, why are you pursuing that particular field?
So like you said, I am a biology student concentrating in animal science at USF. My goal is to hopefully go on to veterinary school one day, and I actually want to specialize in dentistry medicine. I have a pretty deep understanding for those parts of veterinary medicine. I've done a lot of interning throughout the years, and I just have a special heart for animals. So even though loans are going to be going up possibly, I'm one of those people that wants to stick it out and still be able to help animals as much as I can.
Yeah, you might have to check on my cat in the future. Sometimes her teeth look a little weird. What was your reaction when you heard that grad loans would be capped? Was there any visceral reaction that you had immediately, and how are you feeling about it now?
So it's pretty frustrating, I have to admit, only because in the case that they do not lower tuition rates for students going to grad school, if students like myself go to vet school and go over that $200,000 cap, we will have to go into private loans, which can be very high interest rates, which will take even longer to pay off in the future. And a lot of vet schools actually are far more than $200,000 in total throughout the 4-year span. So it's pretty easy to go over the $200. And if you do, it's going to be very hard to pay it off.
If you don't mind me asking, how much does it cost you every semester before loans and scholarships? Like, what's that raw number that you're trying to pay off or at least get paid while you're in school?
It very much varies whether you're an in-state or out-of-state student, but loan costs can range from the high 20,000s a year to up to $60,000. It's a very high range, but as you can see, it's very easy to go over the $200,000 cap.
How many more semesters do you have left?
So in my undergrad, I'm going into my second semester in my junior year. So after this coming semester, I will have 2 more left.
And without now these, or with these new rules in place, are you going to be able to afford to pursue the career and degree? Is this adding any additional hurdles, I guess, is the main thing I want to ask. Are you still as confident going forward that you're going to be able to attain what you wanted going in?
Definitely raises some concern because veterinary medicine in general is not one of the higher paying graduate degrees. So I do have concern for how I'm going to be able to support myself in the future. But like I said in the beginning, I do have a very deep passion for veterinary medicine, and I'm going to find a way to get through it because this is what I want to do.
Wow. That's a bit inspiring. I want to bring Gabriella Paul back into it. She's been covering this issue for WUSF. You've spoken to people that actually teach in some of these now deemed non-professional degrees. What have they been telling you about how this could affect them and even their ability to teach these subjects?
Yeah, well, somebody that has a medical degree, for instance, like a nursing degree, and has another degree that allows them to teach, those are two separate graduate programs, right? That would, even if one's professional and one's not professional, you still can't go over that $200,000 limit. So, I mean, to briefly pause just on numbers, professional degree seekers, they're the ones that have that $200,000 degree limit, like Olivia. If you're in that non-professional bucket, you're actually going to be capped at half that, at $100,000. But If you are including your undergrad degree in that, you can go up to $257,000. So that's the lifelong limit now for borrowers. Even if you are pursuing, for instance, a nursing degree and a degree that lets you teach, your limit is at $257,000. So I've been talking to folks who have that dual degree. One woman, Shrita Ernawine, she's a nurse practitioner and assistant professor at UT. She says, her education cost well over that $257,000. And that's not even including the cost of living while she was pursuing those degrees. So she's wondering for the students she's teaching right now, are there going to be nurse educators to teach her students? Or will those students decide not to go into that field, which might worsen a nursing shortage that we're experiencing here in Florida, certainly, but also across the country?
When you were talking about Preston Cooper's points, I know that there are some instances where we've kind of seen this work. And like you said, It's not one shoe fits all. It's kind of a case-by-case basis. Can you talk a little bit about what happened at Harvard University? Do you have any info on that?
Yeah, definitely. So Preston gave me 2 examples of some ways that universities are responding to this. A lot of universities have put out statements kind of fretting about the new loan limits. Some have gotten creative, like Harvard. They announced that they are going to start their own in-house subsidized loan program. So this would mean, rather than going to Ed Financial or taking out a Grad Plus loan, if you're pursuing a law degree, say at Harvard in the next couple of years, you can actually lend or borrow directly from the university itself. And the idea there is that folks might not have to go into that private market, which, like Olivia said, has that higher interest rate, might be harder to pay off. Instead, you're going to be getting those comparable interest rates directly with the university. And they said that they're doing this in response to these loan limits by name. Another place, Santa Clara Law, they've actually, on the other, flip side of that coin, rather than lending, they're just giving a guaranteed $16,000 tuition scholarship to all incoming full-time JD students. Also saying that it's specifically because of these new limits that were baked into the big, beautiful bill. So those are just 2 examples. Preston did tell me that he expects more of the same, and that this could be the tip of, that chart I mentioned dipping back down, where loan limits go down and so do tuition costs.
We've been speaking with WUSF's Gabriella Paul about the new rules on student loan limitations for certain degree tracks. We also spoke to Olivia Vignali. She's a biology student at USF and president of the Pre-Vet Society. I want to say thank you both for your time.
Thank you.
Coming up.
Thank you so much for having me.
Coming up, season 18 of RuPaul's Drag Race is almost here. 5 Floridians are competing this season, and one is from right here in the Tampa Bay area, and we're speaking to them next. What do you want to know about the experience? And no, there's not going to be any season spoilers coming up. You're listening to Florida Matters, live and local.
WUSF thanks Community Foundation Tampa Bay for a generous grant supporting our Edward R. Murrow Award for Overall Excellence in Large Market Radio. Your investment in public media helps us serve our community. Thank you for believing in WUSF. Support for the Zest podcast comes from WUSF members and Adelaide Interiors, with a new location now open on Kennedy Boulevard east of Habana Avenue in Tampa, offering lunch and learn events and featuring the Wellness Kitchen, where design meets well-being. Learn more and see the schedule at adelaide.com.
I'm Scott Tong. China's military ambitions are clear.
It's aggressively building up its nuclear weapons. It's now got 3 functioning aircraft carriers. It's got hypersonic missiles. It's going gangbusters on building up its military.
Meantime, the Trump administration may be softening on China. Next time, Here and Now.
Join us this afternoon from 1 to 3 on WUSF 89.7. Mike drove his family's long school bus-colored station wagon, the Enterprise, to college. It was a gas guzzler, but it got the job done. If your old car has lived a good long life but is ready to go to that parking lot in the sky, donate it to WUSF. That way, you can help WUSF get the job done by bringing fact-based news to your community. Find out more at WUSF.org.
Welcome back to Florida Matters, live and local. I'm Sky LeBron. Everyone, start your engines. It's almost time for season 18 of RuPaul's Drag Race. Have you seen it before? Oh, you really got to watch it. It's one of the most glamorous reality shows on TV. I mean, seriously, the outfits are absolutely incredible. They're all hand-created by contestants themselves. Drag queens from around the country showcase their talent both on the stage and in the fashion studio as they compete to be America's next drag superstar. There's a lot of color, glitter, drama, and some of the best lip sync battles that you've ever seen. The new season starts January 2nd, and it features 5 Florida-based queens, including someone from right here in the Tampa Bay area. Discord Adams is best known for his exuberant lip-sync battles and fierce, edgy style. He's been in the game for a while now, and he calls St. Pete his home. Discord Adams joins us today. Thank you for being here.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Of course. So, what was the start of everything for you? What drew you to drag?
Oh, I started way back in roughly 2011, and I saw Raja on season 3, and I was like, oh, this kind of changes my perspective on what my limited idea of what drag was. And it was my way of also becoming this rock star that I have always emulated. I've loved Steven Tyler, I've loved the Sex Pistols, and I've always wanted to be that, but I was never able to sing. And drag was kind of my way of being able to become the rock star I always wanted to be.
What was your idea of it before you had this kind of mind shift? What did you think about it before then?
Just, like big hair, camp,
yeah.
Like lots of sequins, just like when you close your eyes and picture the word drag queen, that's what I pictured.
And what would you say to people that still think of it that way?
I would say come to a Discord Adams show and I will change your perspective on anything that you think drag could possibly be. I love to play guitar live. I love to shoot sparks from my belt. Sometimes I even staple money to myself. There are so many ways that you can do drag.
Wow. Sparks from the belt. Is that a hazard? We were just talking about holiday safety before.
Yeah. This would not go well into the holiday safety conversation.
So I know you moved to this area from Chicago. What was your life like as a drag queen in the Windy City?
Cold. It was very cold. When we moved here, all of my drag was so big and so large because I was freezing all the time. And so I had to adjust to the climate here, and now I wear significantly less.
And was that the main reason that you made the move to Tampa? What brought you to this area?
So my friend was going through a rough breakup. I was going through a breakup of the city. Me and my partner wanted to move into her house, help her take care of herself. She helped take care of us. It was kind of this mutual, beautiful, conglomeration, and that we kind of just formed this beautiful friendship. Like, she's been my friend since 15. And so to be able to reconvene back in Florida, it really just kind of meant the world to all of us.
What's the drag scene like out here in the Tampa Bay area? Are you exclusive to just one place? Do you go to a bunch of different places? Kind of how's your schedule work?
I perform pretty exclusively at Cocktails in St. Pete. They really take care of me, and they really take care of all the drag queens here. I would say that the scene in St. Pete is so beautiful and so rich, where we all are doing completely different styles of art, but we're all holding each other's hands while doing it, and we all uplift and we all support each other, and it's everything that I wanted community to be, and especially within the queer scene.
Was there anything that surprised you moving to this area? Was it that level of support, just knowing that so many people got your back out here?
It was, because I think there is a preconceived notion that drag queens can be catty, and that comes from somewhere, that is definitely the case in some cities. So moving to Florida, where it was the complete opposite of that, it was very surprising and very wonderful. It would be hard for me to imagine not doing drag in St. Pete.
You've been now. I know this has been kind of a journey for you. Let's talk about the show. You've been auditioning for RuPaul's Drag Race for about a decade now. What does that journey
Yes.
look like for you, and what's it felt like for you as well?
It's been pretty nonstop. My partner is my partner in crime. Like we do everything together. He helps create all of my outfits. All of our outfits are fully sustainable. They are fully upcycled, so we don't waste anything. And getting to showcase that on Drag Race and getting to showcase that in my audition tapes just really meant the world to us. And especially after auditioning year after year after year and finally getting the call when I do think we are at our best selves right now. So RuPaul always knows. That's the thing is every year I was like, do they hate me? And I got on this year and I was like, RuPaul knew. She knew this was the year for me.
How does that work with your schedule? How do you do tapings for that show, but at the same time, do you have to stop doing your job for a while? Like how do you mix the two?
It's kind of like muscle memory at this point. I've been doing it so many times. I feel like I could close my eyes and film this audition tape. It used to be very time consuming. Like I would have to block off like a month. I was like, sorry, family, you're not going to hear from me for a while. And now I'm like, yep, let's just whip it together. I know these questions.
You talked about upcycling a lot of your outfits, and I'm interested in learning how you do that. Is it going thrifting? Is there other means that you're able to find some of these outfits and kind of piece things together?
Yeah, all of the above. We love to go thrifting and finding like, old curtains, old, duvet covers, like literally anything that like kind of speaks to us, my partner can make into something that looks like it costs $1 million. Meanwhile, we likely only spent like $50 max. And any scraps, we'll save all the scraps from any of our old fabrics. We love to save old broken jewelry. Like we never throw away a single piece of jewelry because you can put it on your lapels, you can put it on your shoulders, you can put it in your hair, on your face. Like there's so many ways to look expensive in drag and not having to spend almost any money at all.
Is that a rarity to do that, to strategize that way, to upcycle your clothes, or do a lot of different drag queens do that?
I think a lot of drag queens rely on a lot of different high-end designers now, and I think that they thought that that was the way to get on Drag Race. And we wanted to show people that you don't have to have designer friends. You don't have to shell out a lot of money. You can bring back drag to what its roots were, which were upcycling, which was being crafty and resourceful. And I think that's what we need more of. And especially right now, during how horrible these economic times are, I think that we need to inspire people to just be more crafty, like stop using AI, stop, relying on things outside of your means. Like we can do anything if we put our minds to it.
How did it feel when you finally made the show? Like, how was that? You spent so much time working on this, auditioning. What was like that? What was that moment? Where were you when it happened?
It was so surreal. I was at home wrapping Christmas presents in Ohio, and I was on the phone with my brother, and I saw a Los Angeles number coming through, and I was like, you know what? This might be Drag Race, but I don't know. But I'm gonna answer it just in case. I was like, a bill collector's never called from Los Angeles, so this has got to be RuPaul. And they moved me on to the next round, and I was like, nope, this is it. I made it. I'm certain right now that I made it, and I screamed, and we didn't stop working from that moment forward.
What was the first thing you did after you got the call? You didn't stop working from that moment forward. Come on, you didn't take like a little bit of time to like celebrate, go get some food.
We literally went right to Joanne Fabrics.
Oh, okay. Have you done anything since to celebrate your making this show?
Yes, my friends threw me a giant surprise party. They decorated this whole area to look like the workroom. They made me a beautiful cake. All my friends came over. And now all of my friends are flying in from all across the country to come to the premiere party that is going to be at Cocktails on January 2nd.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about that. Are there going to be any live viewings of the season premiere? Is there a place where people can go and kind of enjoy the opening of the new season with you?
Yes. So I will be hosting the premiere party on January 2nd. It will be at Cocktails in St. Pete, and they are throwing a gigantic party. They're going to have the show projected over the pool. Everybody will be able to watch. They've got VIP service. They've got tables. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we will all be there celebrating together.
The taping for the season has already wrapped. The world is about to see you and your talent and your abilities. How's that make you feel? Are you nervous about it?
I think because I've been preparing for over a decade, I'm just excited now. I think maybe 5 years ago I would have been like shaking in my boots, but now I'm just so confident in the artist that I have become, and I'm so happy and confident with what I was able to showcase on the show that now I'm just over the moon and excited for everybody to get to finally see it.
And what's next for you? Like, what's next up? Are you continuing to do the shows out in St. Pete? Is there anything on the horizon people should be on the lookout for?
I do want to make a punk album, and I do want to be able to continue to showcase the upcycled fashions that my partner makes. I think merging like the punk world and the fashion world together, I think that's the direction that I'm headed.
That's the last question I do want to ask you. You have a really cool, like, punk rock gothic aesthetic with your outfits. Where did that come from? Is that always just been a part of what you like to do?
Yeah, I grew up a punk kid in Akron, Ohio. Like going to shows was basically everything I did every single weekend. Me and my friends were always like decorating our jackets, spiking our hair. I think that whole world just really called my name because of the politics of it all too. You know what I mean? Most punk kids are very heavily into anti-racism, anti-transphobia, anti-bigotry, and that's been a core staple of who I've always been. And so getting to merge that into my drag has been really important for me.
We've been speaking with Discord Adams. He is going to be on season 18 of RuPaul's Drag Race, which airs starting January 2nd of next year. Discord, thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
That's our show for today. And overall, it's been a great week. I really enjoyed being with you, but my time here in this chair is now done. Florida Matters Live and Local will be right back here on Monday, and you could tune in with Kathy Carter as we talk about Florida's space program, a way to celebrate the holiday without alcohol, and more. Florida Matters executive producer is Grayson Doctor. Our producer is Amelie Horace, and Lily Belcher is our intern, and today is her last day. She's been awesome for more than a year at WUSF in a number of roles, including in this one, and we're going to miss her so much. Can't imagine the newsroom without her, honestly. She's been crucial to getting this show up and running. Just want to say one more time, we are super grateful to have her on the team. Congrats, Lily. You're going to do amazing things wherever you go next. Subscribe to Florida Matters wherever you get your podcasts and watch on WUSF's YouTube channel. I'm Sky LeBron. Thanks for listening, watching, and being here with me. Have a great rest of your week.